Hey, welcome back everyone. Rob here from Ramp Studio Comics, and I'm going to need to do a bit of an audio test real quick before we get started. Been facing some struggles with my audio on my live stream, so once we confirm that everything's good, we can move forward. And I've got a couple options here for today's live stream. Primarily just working through this Venom fan art piece and allowing you to ask questions about the digital inking process. I've also got a little side project of a little face or whatever if we want to jump into that and draw some expressions, because that's been a lot of comments on that lately. But first, I want to verify that the audio is good. So as soon as a few people chime in here, we'll be good to go. Can you hear me? Oh, audio's on. So real quick before we get started, James, I appreciate you saying that. Is the audio subpar or decent? What do you think? Because the last one we did, I did like a digital painting of Thanos, so it was a work in progress, and it sounded very garbled, very, very weak. So this sounds good. Yep, audio's good. All right, we'll move forward then. So I already see there's a question up there. We have to space out questions a little bit to kind of maximize me actually doing some work here and showing you some things. But somebody said, how long did it take you to get this good? I'm 42. I've been drawing my entire life. I took out a big gap of time, about 10, 15 years to do a business. So I still drew, but I didn't draw as much. So realistically, I've probably been drawing a good 20, 25 years solid. I don't know, but a long time. So don't expect it to happen overnight. It gives you anxiety when you attach that kind of relationship to it. You just want to work on it every day. The less you take days out, the better you'll get, the quicker you'll get. Simple as that. So do you guys have any questions about the inking process? I'll just kind of pinball around and jump in here because I need to finish this piece. I've been slacking a little bit. I tend to do that every now and then. Too many video games, not enough comic work. This is supposed to be my video game. This work is like my game in life. But I am taking a little break and playing the new God of War. That's a pretty cool game, and I'm digging it. So yeah. It's nice. Thanks. Appreciate that. I love when people write nice like that. Nice. N-O-I-C-E. Nice. Yeah, one cool thing about this, like when you're doing buildings, notice I don't have any of the perspective rulers on. You can hold shift, and you can click, hold shift, and get a nice straight line. And what's funny is, and you use the bracket keys to scale this down, but what's funny is you actually don't even want to use that a whole lot. You use it almost like as placement, but I've noticed for buildings is that you get a little bit nicer look if you freehand it. Takes a little bit of practice to do it, but something about it just seems to look a little bit more natural, a little bit more impressive than. So if you use too many of those straight lines, it actually takes away from it. Do I play Fortnite? No, I haven't. I haven't played that one. You know, I really limit myself on games because if I do, you guys won't see me here on YouTube as much. So I have to really space it out. In fact, I even just deleted Clash of Clans from my iPad. That's how committed I am to you guys and what I do here. I deleted Clash of Clans just for you. So I started playing it too much. I'm like, goodness, such a simple, not simple game. I mean, it's got a lot to it, but it's just time consuming. And then I found myself like sneaking in little moments to play it when I should be focused on something else. And I'm very adamant, like when things start to consume any aspect of my life that they shouldn't, I delete them. I've done that with people, with video games. No, not people, but you know what I'm saying? Like sometimes you just got to cut the cord, and if it's like a video game you're playing too much, bye-bye. Back to drawing. It's really tough as an artist because you got to put a lot of time into it, or you'll see your work you won't see your work improve to the level that you want. And I think what happens is once you've really sat down and dedicated, you start cramming in like 10-hour days, 12-hour days, whatever. You see your work get so much better, so much faster. You know, I call it leveling up, or lots of people call it leveling up. And you don't want to stop that process. You get excited about that progression. So yeah, it's making that sacrifice and that commitment, but it's worth it. You know, you'll be so glad you did. Like when other people are saying, "Hey, I can't seem to get any better," and you're like, "Oh, I'm seeing my work improve all the time because I'm putting in a lot of time." And you learn little shortcuts as well. Like I'm gonna get ready here to show you one. As I get these little window lines in. Because backgrounds can get monotonous. Feel free to ask any questions, y'all. Just trying to... I haven't live streamed in a while, so I'm going to be a little bit out of it, but I'm slowly going to try to get back into it, hopefully, because I see a lot of potential here. You know, I get a lot of questions on the channel, and I can't always respond to them really well anymore. It's like there's so many, and they're so broad spectrum. I'm thinking just the better way is to do Q&As and just explain it that way. So you see I'm just copy and pasting this, moving it over, and then I hit Command-Shift-T, which is actually distort, and then I hold Shift so that I'm distorting in just one axis or angle or perspective. I don't know what to call it, but I'm not distorting. Like if I don't do that, it'll distort like this, and you get a crazy window. And it doesn't look right. And then hit Enter to merge it down, Command-D to deselect, and then Command-E a couple times will merge them together. You can't see that. Let me bring that other window over. Zing, like that. So I basically, you didn't see the part where I hit Command-E, but I merged them together. So I try to keep elements of the background together, you know, for some kind of idea of organization. Yeah, that's the word. I lack in that department. Let's see what we got here for questions. Okay. What strategy did you use to get better at art, or what helped you the most at getting gooder at art? Nice. You know, just, I'm one of those people, I'm relentless in my approach. So I just, you know, I kind of heal everything with time in the sense that I just work really hard, and you know, I probably just work too hard and try to overcome it with that. So sometimes it's a matter of working smart, which means studying the right thing at the right moment in life. And then other times I just quit thinking and I do. So, you know, I just act, you know, and I'm not saying that's always the best way, because again, you want to work smart, not hard in a lot of senses. And there's a lot of education that goes into artistic development, you know, like backgrounds. I shied away from backgrounds like this for years, because they were hard for me. They're just not, I enjoy drawing characters. Like Venom was way easier for me to draw than this background. It's really silly. It's just the way it is. But I'm starting to get more comfortable with backgrounds now, even mixing in some little Victorian Gothic kind of stuff, because I'm starting to feel more confident with it. But I avoided it for so long. And then I started finding tutorials on how to find center on the buildings, how to map out space and proportions, and you know, and how to look at the silhouette of the structures and blah, blah, blah. So then it became easier because I did my studying. So I don't know if there's one way to just go about that, but the main thing is just don't shy away from the fact that you have to work hard to get better, and you have to study to open up these mental road barriers, because they're there. You're not, I think sometimes we just sit down and draw and we go, well, I'm just going to get better through that. And you will. But you're probably only going to get better at the things you already kind of understand. Then you got to make time to study and learn things that you don't understand yet. I just went and bought 2 big old anatomy books because I'm like, you know, I got a good sense of anatomy, but I don't really know it. I get to certain parts of the body and I go, oh, where's this muscle end up at? So I had to buy a couple big books. I'm going to have to sit down, big old pots of coffee, and read through them suckers and create sketches and things like that. So, sorry, it's probably a really long-winded answer there. All right, next one. Do you have any tips for making sketches look less flat? Like some people have really fluid sketches with soft clothes and stuff. Mine just look so boring or stiff. You know, I would say that that's my rights. I like to draw women's breasts. Yeah, can't really fault you for that. But yeah, so essentially, you know, if they appear stiff and lifeless, it just means that you need to study gesture more and you need to use more organic shapes in your work. So more fluid lines. So like, for instance, at first, when you start to draw a character like this, it becomes very, let me just create a layer and try to explain this. Let me just pop open a new window here real quick. Okay, so when you first start off, you know, characters are very much like, everybody does this, right? Very stiff, everything's forward facing, and it's very easy to make something look just overly structured. And it just stays that way. And then you're like, well, how do I, you know, make it look smoother, more lifelike? And then as you start to study, like, you know, figure drawing, you realize that muscles, you know, they curve right at the end. They roll into another one. There's a little subtle bend the way it curves before it hits the next one. And you start to understand this, like, flow to the anatomy. And if you overdo this, it looks really creepy, right? You know, that's like kind of how I did Venom there. It's like I did this overly creepy kind of almost too many curves here and there, and I overdo it. But I'm really just overdoing the subtlety of what's there. And then like with clothing, same thing. It's like a lot of times people draw clothing and they'll draw it like really rigid. You know, they'll go like this is supposed to be, wait, how would you do wrinkles? Hold on. So I do wrinkles like this, where I do these overlapping lines, I do these zigzags, and at first it looks really squiggly and wrong, but I just kind of soft erase, and I find the shapes in there that I want to find. And I kind of go overly soft and flimsy, I don't know what to call it, but organic or whatever, because I know that if I don't, I might do something like this and go overly rigid. And it's really getting, well, actually I'm kind of liking that overly rigid look, but it's really getting the mix of rigid lines to organic lines, and that's how you kind of find your style and figure out what looks cool. Yeah, I actually like that one better, but sometimes you can overdo this and it just looks very stiff. You know, it doesn't look like cloth, it looks like cardboard or whatever. So it's finding those subtleties, and best thing to do there is study from life. Draw over a picture, trace a photo, and really try to find different rhythms. Like one of the ones that I always see in clothing, you'll see it's a pretty common comic book technique, is to go like this. And they'll overdo it, a lot of artists, because it's probably the most prevalent shape that you're going to see in the clothing. So they go like this, and it's like kind of looks silly at first, and then they get better at doing the shadows, and they block in some shadows, and all of a sudden it starts to look a little bit more dimensional, like, you know, rolled up sleeve kind of thing. But they'll do that zigzag pattern because it's very prevalent. It's an easy thing to direct the viewer real quick and say, oh, that's rolled up material or whatever. So it's learning those rhythms and things like that will really help to make things look more fluid. Hopefully that answers it. Yeah, James says, do it, you suck until you rock at it. Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of working at your weakest link. You know, like a lot of people say, just focus on your strengths. But I like to actually work on a lot. You know, I'll pick out the part that I'm worse at and just, you know, work really hard at it for a while, you know, so that I understand it. I mean, it's kind of like the backgrounds here. It's like, I know that my backgrounds are weaker than they should be, in my opinion, you know, and so I have to really beef up my knowledge on it. And if I can make my backgrounds look great, then my characters are going to look that much better against them. So yeah, but you know, there's a lot of people like, oh, you know, you should just do what you're already great at, and that's how you really shine. That's how you become a star. So there's different viewpoints on that, you know, concept or whatever. But I feel like, you know, yeah, but if you draw like really great characters, but with bad facial expressions, so you got like these really dynamic superheroes, but they all have the same boring facial expression, then where you at? You know, it's not going to carry it. In comics, there's so much that goes into making some great scenes or whatever. You got to kind of be well versed, and I think that's why a lot of people struggle to make it in comics. They might just get really great at one thing or a series of things, but not enough of the right things. Like for instance, you know, faces. You got to be great at faces because that's where we, you know, connect with the character. So if anything, you start there and work out. All right, what else here? Inspiring, thank you. That's a great clothing tip. I'm having problems with that right now. Thanks, James. Same. What apps do you recommend for an old generation iPad? I have an iPad mini, but it can't download Procreate. Huh. Yeah, I don't know why I wouldn't download Procreate, because that's the one I was getting ready to recommend. I mean, Sketchbook has an app, Autodesk Sketchbook, but I kind of don't like that one. Maybe some people watching can chime in on that, because I'm really obsessed with Procreate. Like, it sounds funny, but but you know, it is an amazing app. That's what this was drawn in. Just so you know, this was actually all drawn in Procreate. So, and now it's being inked in Manga Studio, Clip Studio Paint. So that's the one I am a big fan of. It just works really. It has a fluid feel to it. It's smooth. I don't know. It's a great app. It's actually my favorite thing to draw on now. It's crazy. Part of it is the portability aspect. I love being able to take my iPad and go sit at a coffee shop or go on, you know, a little mini vacay with the family and take some of my work with me, which I shouldn't be doing. But I do. I bring it to sketch at night when everyone else is tuckered out and sleeping, and I'm still wired because I drink too much coffee. But I like coffee. I got some right here. All right, so what else? Try concepts for older iPads. Okay, there you go. I've never even heard of that one. Did you have to go to art school to be as good as you? And did you go to art school? Thank you, Jada. No, I didn't go to art school. I took some art classes in high school. I went to art college for a quick minute. I was paying for it out of pocket, and they put me in these very rudimentary introductory classes, and I was teaching other kids stuff or whatever. You know, I'm not trying to brag, but it wasn't for me, and I was paying out of pocket because I was broke and I needed to. I should have got funding, but I didn't, and I was just paying for classes. And it wasn't a great art. Well, I shouldn't say that. It was pretty darn good in some ways, but it just didn't suit me for where I was at in life, and I needed to get to work and make some money. So I started working at a design firm and knocking out stickers of all things. But I was making stickers for cars, which was actually pretty fun, but it was means to an end. Sorry, I had to get a sip of my coffee there. So that's kind of the approach I took. Now, I don't like to knock school, though. When people start asking questions like this, I think oftentimes what they're thinking is, do I really need school? Can't I just learn as I go? And you can. You definitely can. But I don't like saying that without some explanation because, for instance, I don't want to discourage kids that should be going to school or have the means to go to school. I really just didn't have the means. Had I had the means to go to the school I would like to have went to, I remember a big one that was on my list that I would have loved to went to was like Ringley. That was like one of the, probably still is, but one of the real popular art schools that everybody just talked about, in the art community when I was growing up. And, I'd have loved to went there. Couldn't afford it though. It wasn't an option. So for people it's an option, I say do it. If you can ever learn more, learn more. Don't ever shortchange yourself in that regard. Now, if you're on that fence of where you're like, I can't really financially justify it, I don't have the means, can I still be a great artist? Hell yeah, you can. I mean, you can be a great artist because, well, for one, the way of learning has been revolutionized in this generation, or generations, I don't know, it's been a while, but it's all online now, so you can find it with what you're doing here, watching me on YouTube, sharing some work, obviously. You can take Udemy courses, which, you guys probably know I'm a Udemy instructor, so I'm not going to try to pump my courses here, but at the same time, I'm a big fan of that learning experience, like being able to take a course. I take them myself. I don't just teach them. I take them. I'm highly a big advocate of it. And the ability to learn those things from people that put some real, time and effort into their production of what they're teaching and take that anywhere with you on these devices is hugely influential for probably any market, but really great for art because kind of what we just kind of covered. Like, there's lots of art colleges out there, and there's some that are just amazing. Like, I would love to have went to, I think it's called Kubert Art School and Design or something for comics. I mean, that would have been fantastic. It just wasn't really in the pocketbook for me. But nowadays, you can at least get, some pretty good information out there from different course content, from, blog posts, books, everything. You can definitely self-teach, but it's probably just going to take you a little bit longer. You're probably going to pinball around a little bit. And here's the other thing you got to be ready for. You got to be highly, highly self-motivated. You're talking to somebody that has been always motivated. If you talk to any of my friends, my mom, anybody that knew me growing up, I was motivated. Like, there's just always been a fire there, probably because I grew up broke, whatever, but I'm not trying to say feel bad for me, not like that. I'm just saying that it gave me a motivation that it's always been very definite in my world. So just be ready for that. I don't want to tell you, yeah, you can do it, but you're going to kind of pick at it and maybe do it. No, you need to jump in and you need to make a schedule and a commitment and a routine. Anything you do with that kind of motivation and direction, you're going to succeed at, in my opinion. But you gotta find that out for yourself. All right. What else? How do you go about drawing anatomy? Mostly torso. And I think I missed one. I'm probably gonna miss a couple here. These get tricky to read through. And somebody said something about hands. Some tips on drawing hands. Fingers are a nightmare to me. Let me jump back to another screen real quick. I was kind of making it on inking here, but For hands, I'll just do a quick one on hands. You know, start with, that's the ink pen, hold on. Start with a block like this, okay? Make the 4 openings for the fingers, but make sure to curve them like that. Opening for the thumb comes out, and I start looking at my thumb immediately. Always look down at your own hands, for instance. And then the thumb comes out, comes back. You got to pay attention to the relationship of the way the thumb bends. It's opposing, obviously. Use your hand as reference. And then as the fingers, I draw them as little stick fingers. I do everything this way, really. And I always make sure to get this curve. And if you hold up your hand and you pay attention to it flat, always draw something flat if you're struggling with it. You want to draw it in the most basic, primitive way at first, and then use that as your reference. It seems to help anyways. But the knuckles go across in curves. They don't go straight across. So you want to always look for relationships as you draw these things, and it becomes a lot easier. Forgive me because I'm like slaughtering this sketch here, but like where the relationship from the middle pointer finger to the ring finger, how much smaller the pinky is. Pay attention to those little things. Look at where the little pads start in relationship to the thumb, so on and so forth. So forgive this bad sketch. And then as you come over here, you reconstruct it, but use cylinders at first the lines, but then you use cylinders. And it doesn't just happen. I often have to draw hands 2 or 3 times, where I'll draw other things just once now, and it just depends on what it is. Like, that's a horrible hand, obviously, but I just want to give you the way that I do it. That's the process I take. But I will be honest and say there's go-to hands that I do. Like, for instance, I know that I can draw a hand coming out and, maybe coming out with one finger like this and the few coming down, and then you got to hide the other fingers, right? And I know that I can do this pretty easily because I've done it enough times. So I'll kind of start to jump past the blocking in method, and I'll start to draw the silhouette. Now, that's just something that, because I've done it enough, I can kind of see past those initial steps. So if you're not seeing past those initial steps yet, you still got to create a lot more studies, and over time you'll start to figure it out, and it'll just make sense. And boom, you got a little arm and a hand coming out towards camera, some creepy nails. So they kind of are easy, I guess. But yeah, something like that. So hopefully that helps. Okay, what else? All right, how do you go about drawing anatomy, mostly torso, but no overly doing the details? Oh, okay, not overly doing the details and making it look more human. That's a tricky one to answer as well. I mean, it basically comes down to the whole practice thing, and then getting a feeling for the anatomy where it doesn't come across as rigid in your design and your work. So using a lot more organic lines, flowing things in and out from one another, and not just using an overly rigid series of lines, I guess. It's hard to say. Like, for instance, there's some artists that can take angular lines and it still looks stylized, fun, and fluid in a way. Generally, if you can't do that, you just have to stay away from more angular lines. Like I'm obviously using a bunch of angular lines for the background because backgrounds tend to be more rigid. They're not entirely rigid, though. You have to use curves in conjunction with it. And then when you start to get just the right amount of curves with even these rigid background lines, it starts to look more like designed buildings and not just a bunch of big blocks sitting in the background. Same thing applies with the anatomy, but a lot more organic lines, depending on the style. So I have some straight lines in here. If you look real close, some of these lines are going to look pretty straight, but there's a lot more organic lines going on to make it look fluid. And then I also use a lot of line breaks so that I'm not just, I had to fight the urge to trace every muscle. Like, you don't want, let me pick a color, maybe that'll be easier to explain what I'm trying to say here. The heck, I got some Crayola crayons here. Okay, so like if I was to take this, and draw this shoulder like this, why is it? Oh, it's back behind this. Let me grab a new layer. You can kind of see the shapes like that, right? And it's real easy to draw this shape and then maybe do one big shadow like this, especially starting out. This is what you'll see people do. And then maybe they get some of these lines, but they don't know where to stop them, so they just go all the way through. And so it can look very like too much. Like there's almost too much. There's definitely a lot of segmentation going on in the shoulder, and probably too much. But it's a style that I like to do, and I've done it enough where I can kind of make it work. But I think the most natural part probably looks like the hand and the forearm, if anything, because it's not too overly segmented. I mean, it definitely is right about here, like this, but it's getting that mix of organic lines and fluidity into the work, and then knowing when to have things pass in front of other things to create depth. That's a big part of it. And again, you can trace, like muscle magazines or whatever, UFC fighters, those are great because they're like in action, moving around and stuff. And you can trace some of the lines. You don't have to trace and create your drawing. But what I'm saying is when you're studying, draw through it and look for relationships. Look for the way that the bicep comes in front of the middle. Or like, one that took me forever to get, but now I start to see it a lot more, is the way that there's kind of an A right there. See that? And I didn't draw that forever. I don't remember what I did. I think I used to take the bicep and connect it right to the tricep, and it always looked weird. And then for a while, I just did this little separation like this, but it was like a staple. See how it looks like a little staple or something? And it was too even. And it's like, I realized now, no, it's the relationship of this coming up, and then it kind of comes up like that. So you just start to pay attention to these shapes more and more, and that's how you start to get your characters to have a more organic feel and a fluid kind of anatomy. But anatomy is a tough one. It takes years and years for anatomy. It doesn't just happen overnight. You got to constantly study anatomy. All right, let's see. And this was a response to that one, because when I draw Spider-Man, the greatest of all superheroes, I draw the anatomy, but then I can't really draw the symbol. Okay. Yeah, just practice and draw it off to the side. If there's something you can't draw, take some time to sit down, open up your sketchbook, and just fill the page with that one thing. That's the hard work and the effort that you need to do to get better, and you'll always appreciate when you do that. It's like, it's like when people say, you ever take time to work out and then go at the end of the workout, go, God, I wish I wouldn't have did that. I wasted my time. No, you never hear anybody say that, because they're always happy that they took the time to work out. They feel better. They're excited to do it again. Whether or not they do, that's up to them. But when it comes to art, your workouts are filling up those sketchbooks, those pages. When you get done and you fill up a whole page with just arms or just faces or whatever you're trying to get better at, you're going to be pretty happy you did at the end of the day. Yeah, you might have wished you did a cool pin-up or whatever, but sometimes you have to stop and evaluate a certain aspect of your work and just hit it hard. Hit the books, hit the sketches. Let's see. How long did it take you to make this wonderful piece of art? Thanks, Vortex Legacy. I appreciate that. It's actually a while. I'm probably 4 hours into the inks. The pencils probably took me 8 to 10 hours. So this is a ridiculously long piece. It shouldn't. I wanted to make it very detailed, and I'm not as quick with backgrounds as I need to be right now. Venom didn't take long at all, but I'm pretty good at seeing the characters. My imagination for character design is pretty darn good with all the stuff I've been doing, but this was more to focus on the background really than anything, and it definitely showed in the amount of time it's taken me to complete it. And I've had some stuff going on, life is life or whatever, but James, I'll pump your courses. Oh, thanks, man. I really appreciate that. And I'm glad you're enjoying them. So yeah, I teach online courses on Udemy. I'll make sure there's links in the description box. And I really appreciate when people support it, because it does allow me to come over here to YouTube, spend some time, and not worry so much. Like when I was first doing this, when I first got into YouTube, I was like, it was a lot of stress, because I'm like, man, I don't know if I can really do this, if I can dedicate the time that I need to make this YouTube channel take off. And I just was kind of hoping and wishing that YouTube would take off for me. And it didn't. It never took off like that. Like, it's been great, but it's never been like a breadwinner or something I can say that really justify all the time I put into it. At first, on the superficial side, on the face value of it, I should say, on the epidermis of it. But then as it started to pan out, it led to like teaching courses on, first I taught them on Tuts Plus, and then I taught them on Udemy, or I teach them on Udemy now. And it's really helped out. Like, it's made it to where I can, just do what I do. I can be creative. I can create fan art. I can create character designs. Mainly, I got to always stop to share and teach the work to justify what I do. But I've been very fortunate, and I thank all of you for the support and for sharing the work and giving me great ideas, essential feedback to me knowing where to direct my efforts, because I'm one of those people, like, I got tons of energy and I love to draw, but I'm not always the most focused. And, I know people have called me out on the videos over it, and they're like, man, this dude rambles a lot. And I do. I'm the rambling man. I ramble. But that's just me. It's like the way I do things. But if with your guys' feedback, I'm able to get a little bit of focus and know where my efforts should be placed. And it's been pretty cool. So, and it's really great, too, to get comments back. And people are like, saying that the courses or the artwork has helped them get better and get past a certain problem they faced in their art or design. And that's just so impactful for me. It's like, it makes me feel like I'm on the right path, that I'm doing the right thing, that it's not just making a living, but it's helping other people have the faith and confidence to do this stuff. Because when I came up, I was really scared and apprehensive, like, can I do this for a living? And I never got into the big wigs, like, I wanted to do the whole Marvel thing and, Marvel DC or something, and that never really panned out for me. But at the same time, it still worked out to where I was able to create art and share the work and become a content creator, basically. So I was still able to do it. So it's kind of funny, because I would have thought growing up, like, I have to get that job at Marvel or I'm not going to be able to make it. And that it didn't work out that way. So there's no singular path to success or what you're after. I firmly believe, what's the saying? Like, don't follow the path, go where there is no path, and leave a trail. And I love that quote, because it's like, you make your own path. You make it happen for yourself. Like, if you can't find a way, make a way. I know it sounds very cliche, but it's the truth. Like, you just have to persevere and press on, and you'll find your own little niche or something, of your way of doing it. Maybe it hasn't been found yet. Maybe it's still waiting to be invented. Maybe you invent it. I never take anything off the table. So, yeah, thanks, James. He's like, the rambling helps sink the points home. Don't worry about it. It's one of your strengths. I hope so, because they'll write that, and I'm like, oh man, I don't know how to change that. That's like me. I can't change me. And if I could try, or if I could, why would I? I'm not here to change myself. Hopefully, just to help others with whatever quirks I got going on. Let's see. Yep, the background is very, very good, very detailed. Yeah, thanks so much. Interesting quote. Yeah, I love quotes. I'm a quote junkie. I think they're cool. It's like whenever you hear that right one at the right moment, you're like, that's so me. That's like my life. Thank you. There's just some good ones out there. Good food for thought. So any questions on the inking, you guys, or anything at all? It doesn't have to just be the inking, but that's kind of what the demo. I thought it'd be good to do some Q&As on this one, because, or at least with inking, I guess, because so many people will, just some of the questions I get on the inking videos, like, how do you do this, and why do you do this instead of that? But whatever you guys, whatever comes to mind, just let me know and I'll try to answer it. I don't know why I put 3 little ugly little windows like that, but I think I'm going to leave them. We'll say something about trim, though. When in doubt, just add another line if you're trying to make it look more detailed. But you got to be careful, too, though. Like, I have this bad habit when working digitally. I zoom in really far and start detailing something, and I pan back and go, oh, my goodness. That's going to be like the size of a thumbnail when this gets printed, if it gets printed or whatever. I'm sorry, it's not going to get printed, Marvel. It will not get printed. I shouldn't be saying I'm going to print fan art, right? Yikes. All right, let's see. I plan on creating or making a comic soon with a lot of fighting, specifically like magic and explosions with stuff, but I'm not sure how to draw dust or explosions. Any tips on that? Yeah, so basically like dust and explosions, let me jump over another layer. I would say you're going to want to think about like I always do powers. I'll start with powers, right? Powers are pretty, actually I can probably add it to this hand. Here we go. So powers, I'll start with like, I call it area of influence or something. And then I'll draw like the energy pulsating off it or whatever it is. And then I'm looking for like the shapes to look, fluid and moving, showing some motion or whatever. So with explosions, same concept. I'll do the area of influence. So maybe the explosion is like, you know, that kind of mushroom cloud effect you get. And then it expands out, and then you get some lines that shoot out from there. So let's get rid of this, because it always looks really messy when I keep drawing over stuff. So yeah, so you do like this mushroom cloud thing, and I'll do these like lines. This is all subjective to your style, but I'll do these lines to kind of round it out. You know, I'll do a couple series of them or whatever. And then if it's exploding out, I might do this a few times, and I might mix up some lines coming out. You could do like debris shooting off or something. And again, you know, and these lines actually you can do it two ways. You can shade from the bottom up, which probably makes more sense, to tell you the truth. And then this could be the smoke, and you just kind of, you know, almost like you're doing clouds. So you put in these base shadows, and you know, shade up. And in each layer, you do that again, and you mix it up so it doesn't look so repetitive. But that's just one way. And then, what was it? Explosions and stuff. I'm not sure how to draw dust or explosions. Dust, you know, you can mix this in with the explosion, so you can have this kind of rolling dust. It's real popular in comics. You know, you always see this. You know, does this really well. You can look at his work, Jim Lee. He does this like in a lot of his battle scenes. The dust will be rolling up and swirling, you know, away. It's a neat dynamic. It's pretty easy to do. And then another one that's pretty cool. They'll do like this, and I think this is a Jim Lee thing. And you'll see like a rock or something that's kind of behind it and shaded, but you can tell it's just like faintly behind it. You know, he doesn't fully detail it, so he'll make like little silhouettes that are kind of looking like they're peering through it. So yeah, that's kind of a fun one to do. And you can create a lot of cool dynamics with that, because if you got a character behind that, you know, all of a sudden he looks more ominous. You know, and something's kind of like he somehow survived the explosion, right? And he's a tough guy. He's mad. Maybe some of that smoke's coming off his head. It's like, not cool, man. Who did this? And you have a clenched fist to make him look really like he's getting ready to beat somebody down. I don't know. Anyways, hopefully that helps. All right, back to the drawing, because I'm feeling a little insecure about that sketch I just did. Let's see. How many layers do you use for line art, inking, and coloring, and shading? Whoa. You know, I don't even know. I'm the worst person when it comes to layers. I'm layer heavy, layer intensive. I get them really discombobulated. I just try to conform them down as I go, and I try to have, like, say, the character as a layer. What I'll do is I'll use a layer to add some lines, and then after I'm pretty sure I like them, I merge them down. Now, I didn't do that all the way here. I've got a few too many going. So I've got, like, the logo on a different one. But really, all of these that are part of Venom now, and I'm pretty satisfied with it, I can hit Command E, merge them together. And I ultimately want to end up where he's... God, I got way too many here. And the reason I do this is because I'm trying to experiment sometimes as I add in some of these effects. But once I'm done and I've got them all pretty much there, I need to merge them down. So as I take this one, make sure this is part of that background element right there, Command E. That should be part of it. Command E. I'm all over the place. It's horrible. Yeah, this should be up here. Command E. There. And ultimately, I want it to where the character is on his own layer. This portion of the background right here, hopefully you can see that X, is on its own layer. And then all this is on its own layer. Okay, and the reason why I stage the work like that is because if I decide to change something, I can block in white in between these layers, and I can really make them stand out, and I can make adjustments pretty effectively. You know, and if I block in the color, I can really use that for the flats and the color work as well. But I don't keep track of the actual layers. I just don't. Unfortunately, I just kind of go for as many as I need, and I add one to test, and I merge it in. Oh, and Eric's saying, hey, Robert, I want to say thank you for the great work. You're welcome. Thank you. And your courses are exceptional. Appreciate that. Yeah, really appreciate that. Whenever anybody takes a course, it really helps me out. Thanks so much for that. And be sure to let me know anytime I can improve that stuff. So if you guys take a course and you're like, hey, that course on drawing faces was cool, but the one thing I've kind of felt like it really needed was blase, split, whatever it is, just tell me. And if I can add that in, and especially if I get a couple people that say the same thing, then I know it's noteworthy. And sometimes if it's just a good idea and one person says it, I'm going to add that in. So keep that in mind. I always appreciate the feedback, and I want to make those as well-rounded for everybody. So it's not just like, hey, I did this and it's done and I'm on to the next thing. No, if there's something I can do to make the previous ones better, I'm going to do that. What are some quick ways to get a dynamic pose done without having too much into details? Oh, and that helped a lot. Thanks, Jade. I appreciate that. So a dynamic pose, what you really want to focus on, and I'm going to get into a lot of dynamic pose stuff real soon because my next course is going to be how to draw dynamic superheroes. That's actually the one I'm working on right now. And basically, what you want to do, you want to keep it simple anyways. This is the part where most people overthink it, right? So at first, we want to draw a dynamic character, say, coming out towards camera, right? And we want to draw this arm coming out, so we draw an arm, and it's coming out towards camera, and we get all extra detailed about it, right? So we're trying to fill in all this anatomy, and and I could do this somewhat from memory because I've done them a bunch. I'm not saying it's going to be pretty, but I'm going to try to explain a concept more than do a pretty drawing. But as it's coming out towards camera, that's horrible. And I try to just detail this right off the start, right? I'm just drawing and drawing. I'm trying to add all this detail. And then I wonder why it comes out clunky or just not very fluid. It's because I kind of skipped a bunch of steps. And if I'm not ready to do that, then I'm just not ready to do that. But one of the best ways to simplify it, or you should simplify it until it's time to detail it, is you should say, hey, that's a head right there. Nothing special, it's a head. Here's a shoulder. Here's the collarbones. Here's a shoulder. Arm comes out towards camera, and you got to think about this. You got to go, okay, arm's coming out towards camera, but where's it ending up? Is it ending up, if I went from the shoulder to the elbow, how far can this really go and look accurate? And sometimes what you have to do is put what's out the most. So you might draw the hand first. And then, for fingers, just these tiny little marks. The reason why is you want to make sure that you simplify this as much as possible so that you're making changes as quickly as possible. Because your likelihood of getting it right the very first time, unless you're a professional, unless you've been doing it a long time, are slim to none. And it's okay. That's fine. You shouldn't think that you have to get it right the first time. A lot of professionals don't get it right the first time, but what they know is that if they're quick to make their changes, they can figure it out reasonably fast. So if you use these little stick man effects or stick lines, whatever, stick person, then you start to go, okay, well, if the arm came out here, and again, here's the opening for the wrist. I'm going to draw that like that. This character's leaned over. There's their waist, simple as that. I'm not going to detail. I'm not going to add abs and obliques or nothing like that yet. Here's the pelvis. Here's a leg coming out towards camera. Here's one going back away from camera. So you see how you can kind of start to visualize that pretty quick as long as you keep them simple enough to where it's not bogging you down mentally to figure this out, because the body's a very complex thing. If you sit there and try to figure out all the details and you jump into the details too early on, I can almost guarantee you the end result isn't going to come out nearly as good. So you have to just kind of omit some of that mentally as you start off and get the basics in, get the broad strokes in. It's like a painter, they work big to small. So get those broad strokes in first, then start to connect the dots, basically, is what's going on here. Let's see what else. I'm hearing that all artists must learn 3D. This is Sam Reeves. Good to see you, Sam. Must learn 3D to be valued, even if they focus on 2D. What are your thoughts? Yeah, I love 3D. I used to do light wave animations for television. Part of my career I actually, kind of miss. I do ZBrush now, not enough, but I got to get back on it. But I absolutely love 3D. The reason I do, I think, is kind of for what you said. It helps you to visualize in a three-dimensional perspective. And drawing will get that, you'll get there too with drawing, but it's real easy to kind of get lost in that. And especially if you don't study in the right ways, 3D just kind of reinforces your perception on three-dimensional space. You start to see all this cool 3D stuff. I love most, when working in 3D, I love the wireframes. The wireframes are so important, I think, as a line artist, because you look at them and you're like, oh, I can kind of see if I went around this solar plexus, this rib cage, it's going to go down here and these lines are going to wrap back like this. And in a 3D kind of thing, it makes you think about that. And that's what you want to do. You want to vision. We're working on a 2D surface here, but you want to think as three-dimensional as possible. That's why I also like filling in these little cylinders that I do. And I like putting in a little circle like there. And this one's going to be bigger because it's closer to camera. There's going to be a bigger circle. And, you know, if you get good with these ovals, you can direct the rest of the anatomy. You can say, okay, based on the angle that this is, the oval is going to be something like that. Based on that, this muscle group is going to kind of wrap around something like this, whatever. It's like working up, but I'm actually looking through it. I'm peering through it. I'm not, maybe I'm not confident enough to recognize the exact silhouette yet, but I can build up to that and hopefully find that silhouette. So, no, I highly recommend working with 3D. And there's a lot of great, cheap, and even free programs for 3D. There's Sculptress, I think, which is made by ZBrush. I think it's totally free if it's still out there. That's what I started on. Then I segued to ZBrush because if you're not used to something like Lightwave, or a free version would be, goodness, what's that awesome free 3D software? It's got liquid commands and everything. Starts with a B. Goodness. Anyway, it'll come to me, but it starts with a B if you guys want to try to figure that out. It's an amazing software, and it's totally free, open source, and it's as powerful, probably, if not more powerful than Lightwave. It's crazy. But Lightwave you pay $1,000 for, and this other one, Blender. God, thank you. Oh, man, that should have been a contest. A couple of them. Blender. Yeah, you guys know then. Better than I do, apparently. But yeah, it's an amazing software. Totally open source. I mean, it's just nuts. There's so many great free programs out there. It's amazing that they do that. Let's see. Man, this helps a lot. I always thought that stick figures make things look stiff and such. Glad to see that it doesn't. Yeah, no, it's one of those things where, you know, where you kind of have to use stick figures a little bit until you get more advanced, and maybe it starts to make more sense. But I find myself doing it more lately. One of the reasons is because you want to really study gesture. And if you're going to get those little subtleties, like, you know, somebody's sitting there and they're kind of like shocked and they got their arms up and their backs, you know, kind of tilted back, like they're leaning back, like, what's the deal, you know, or whatever they're thinking. You got to study the gesture. And gesture, in a lot of ways, the best way to do gesture is the least amount of lines possible. That's the way I look at it. Like, you want to figure out a way to get it down with just the simplest of lines. And if it makes sense there, then you're probably pretty safe to draw over top of it. But if it doesn't make sense there and you can spot some awkwardness, then that's what you got to work on first. And so it really kind of puts you into perspective of not jumping the gun and the cart before the horse and like trying to detail this work when something's not right with the underlying structure. So to me, that's the stick man. That's the gesture. Start there and, you know, once you get those nailed, you know, you start pumping out hundreds of these because they're quick. You can do that. You can set aside an hour, 2 hours in your day, and you can slam out a ton of these, or a full day. I mean, it would just be nuts. But you would really feel accomplished after that. And it's not just the body; it's gestures of the hand, gestures of a facial expression. Again, you want to look past all the detail, and you want to see the flow of something. You know, the flow of the hair and stuff like that. You got to really try to see into that, and then all the rendering looks better on top of that. It starts to, you know, make sense once that's there. What was the one? I think I just missed one. James says, any tips on differentiating? No using big words, James. What are you trying to trick me up there? Seeing you with that differentiating word. Textures when inking such as different types of cloth. Yeah, well, I'll go back to the inking for a minute. I don't have any cloth in here. I mean, I guess Venom soup, but you know, all I really try to adhere to there when creating different textures is that there is a noticeable difference. I generally will do it whether or not it's the cross hatching, you know, versus, you know, this kind of like stumpy or blocky looking, you know, building textures or whatever. Or, you know, for instance, if you notice how I tried to do the stone texture here compared to the smooth, more refined texture on his skin or suit there. So that's really all I do. I just try to make sure that there's consistency from one element to the next. I don't think that it has to be a certain way that you texture one or the other, just that there's consistency from one or the other. So if one way is the way that you do cloth, make it distinctly different than the way that you do brick, and distinctly different from the way that you do a background effect. You know, it's just having that separation. I think it's all about, you know, layering it out, making things pop off of each other. So that's probably the best way I could say to handle that, aside from trying to draw cloth and ink it and all that. Hi from Russia. Hello, Russia. Yeah, the internet is so cool. Like that's even that there's somebody in Russia watching me draw. This makes me feel special. Thank you. All right, back to inking here because I'm deviating quite a bit. This was supposed to just be on inking, but I think we're talking about a little bit of everything today. A little bit about life. A little bit about everything. So back to that little shift command. I will use it right here. Bam, just like that. Little straight line. Gotta love it. Thanks, Manga Studio, Clip Studio Paint, whatever your name is. Thank you for that little option. How's life? It's pretty good, Kraken. What's cracking with you? Hi from Iran. Goodness, all over the globe. Nice. How do you usually draw hair? One strand at a time. No, actually I don't draw one strand at a time. Let me do a little hair demo. Goodness, people, let me ink here. What is the deal? All right, one on hair, and then I'll do some inking. Okay, so hair I don't do one strand at a time. I actually do the shapes, and I try to break it up at first. So say you got a head here. This is going to be a really poorly constructed head, but that's fine. Nobody's head is perfect. I don't care what they say. All right, so there's the head. And then the hair, I like to define the hairline. Something like that. And then I'll draw the shape of the hair, but I do separations. So I'm drawing like these big overlapping shapes. I don't need to keep them all. It doesn't even need to be the exact right shape at the right, the beginning. But what I'm looking for is the overlap, kind of. And again, trying to see through it a bit and figure out the. I'll tell you right now, if it's a woman's hairstyle, I'm not as good at that because I don't have beautiful flowing hair on my head. So I look at reference images and I pay attention to the way the shapes overlap, and then I kind of do the broad strokes of it. So it's like I might get like some big shapes of it in there. So if you notice, I'm not doing like line. That comes later. You got to work big to small. So I'll get like a big shape here, another shape here. I always notice that if I get just the right overlaps, it works, and if I don't, I have to do it again. And here's another thing that I have to draw. Unless it's the same hairstyle over and over, I have to draw it a couple times. And I also want to pay attention to that silhouette. You always get like this little indent, or some hairstyles. You can never say always with hair or anything. But yeah, I draw it big to small, and I think about shapes like this. Like if I was to practice just the flow, I'll do like the ribbon effect. So it's like overlapping on itself and turning, and hopefully you can see that, but more of a ribbon, and then I detail it that way as well. So, but it's keeping that separation, and it's keeping things flowing in and around and behind each other, and not making it too overly repetitive, because when you make it too overly repetitive, it tends to stiffen up. And, you can do these effects. Some people just do this where it's like, how do you do it? I don't do this one as often as I should, but it's like this, and they'll just do a big shape like that. And then they'll do like one little light source on the top, because that's generally where light comes from. And they'll do like a light source on the side, and they'll just fill it in. And there's a lot to be said for this technique. Like, who does it really well is J. Scott Campbell. A lot of artists do it, but he does it really well. Gets that light just right, does just a little bit of separation here in the bulk of the hair, and it looks really cool. And you can almost put it on this guy. Oh wait, and it's really easy. It's just really, really easy. So I can understand why a lot of people do this technique. It's not really the one I use. And you put on that guy right there. But yeah, it's effective is what I'm saying. So all right, back to this. Let's see. I was wondering if you're planning on making your own comic. That hurts. Really hurts, Kraken. I have my own comic. It's called Blackstone, and you can get it on my Gumroad. But book 2 should have already been out. I do feel bad that not enough people know about my comic. A little cry there. Hello, Robert. Have a hard time drawing eyes on faces. Have you any tips? Yeah, I've got a few videos. If you search on the channel, I've got some on eyes. If something's not clicking there and you need more info, be sure to comment in the video and I'll see if I can update it, because I do make a lot on eyes, because it's like one of those things where eyes are windows to the soul, and we all need to be really good at eyes for our expressions and our comics. But I do have a few already, but like I said, if they don't relate well, if you think that there's something there missing that could be expounded upon, let me know and I will be sure to expound upon it for you. All right, trying to read through these real quick. Hold on. Oh, no big deal, Kraken. I was just giving you a hard time. I was like more down on myself. Like I need to really promote my book a bit better, but I actually need to work on it more relentlessly and get that done. I got to mix that in with the channel and get that done. Oh, thanks, Eric. He's like, I bought it too. So somebody else must have said that. Thanks, you guys. I appreciate the support there. Who's your favorite colorist? I don't know. I'm gonna sound so horrible for saying this, but I never really paid attention to the colorists as much. Lately I have, and I do like oh goodness, I don't want to slaughter his name. I cannot remember his name. Yeah, see, it's really sad. I don't pay attention to the colors as much as I should, which is silly because some of them are just amazing. I'm a big fan of like black and white, and then I love seeing them in color. Don't get me wrong, and some of those colors are just fantastic. But I don't remember the names as well. But then again, I don't remember a lot of the newer artists as well either. I'm like a big fan of the '90s guys, and whenever I see their books, I pick them up. And I know some newer artists, but I don't really know a whole lot of the new guys. Like I know, like Patrick Brown's been doing some amazing stuff, and actually he does the color and everything. Really like his use of color for sure. So I'd have to give it to him if I picked a favorite colorist. But he's more like the whole deal, right? He like draws it, inks it, colors it, the whole deal. But yeah, he does some amazing work. But I've most of all just been like a penciler junkie, like just watching people do amazing pencils. And then, I know some pretty dynamic inkers. Scott Williams is always I was always a big fan of his work. And, as far as pencils, always like Benitez and, all the big names from back in the day or whatever, probably still doing it, but guys like that. So yeah, I feel really bad that I don't know as many colorists as I should. Who's your favorite? How about that? Let's put you on the spot. See what you say. Do you have any kind of warm-up before you start drawing? Yeah, I mean, just like rough sketches, basically. I sketch like gestures and, maybe some loose facial expressions, things like that. When it's inking, I don't, just because there's already lines there, so I just kind of try to go off of what's there. But yeah, I just, just some rough sketches of the body in motion, basically. Not sure what I'm doing right here. I don't think I like that. I don't like that. Thank goodness for Command Z. Did you ever get to a point where you felt like giving up on art or felt like you weren't improving? Goodness, it's depressing. Yeah, I feel like giving up right now. I'm done, you guys. It's over. I'm going to shut down the channel. I'm going to go get a real job. It's been fun. hasta la vista. No, I'm just kidding. No, I don't know what else I would do. I think I have to do this now. I've come too far. Has there ever been a time? Yeah, one of the ones that I constantly mention, for me anyways, was when I was probably like 20, and I'd already been published. I was getting some published work. I was doing comic shows, signing autographs, and I was kind of like sitting there going, show me the money. Like, it's sad to say, but I needed money to survive, and I was like sitting there thinking, wow, maybe this isn't gonna really pan out for me, like financially, and I kind of like to go to the store and buy stuff, so I'm gonna be stuck like not buying stuff, and whatever. I just wanted to be able to provide for my family and be financially stable. I hate money, but I like being free. I want financial freedom essentially. And so I got to that point where I was like, man, I don't know if this is going to pan out. And all these voices kept kicking into my head of like people telling me, you should get a real job and you should work in the shop and you got to have health insurance and all this stuff. It's like you can't just sit around and draw pictures. And it started to weigh in on me. So it's not that I ever felt like quitting, but I felt like I had to make that tough call. And I started doing graphics for a living, and I was still getting to do art, but I was just making stickers and designs for people's cars, and I did that for many years. And I pretty much just assumed that that's the way my life was going to be, and that was the way I had to go, and that comics were just for a select few that were able to get their foot in the door at Marvel or DC, or you always noticed it was like family or friends of friends that got in there, so I thought maybe it was a closed market, because you see that in a lot of industries. It's all on who you know, and they kind of open the door for you, So I figured like maybe I didn't know the gatekeepers to that whole industry and I couldn't get in there. I really didn't think, looking back, it's like my art wasn't that good back then. And it's so funny because I didn't think that even had anything to do with it. So apparently I was way too egotistical, but I was like, just thought, well, my art's good enough. I just can't seem to make the right connections. But really now in retrospect, looking back, I wasn't good enough. I don't know that, met that bar yet, but I definitely wasn't back then, but that wasn't, it was such a tough little niche to get into that I just felt like maybe I should do something else because I didn't want to struggle. And I'm not a minimalist, like I'm not one of those people who are like willing to live in a tiny home so that I can do what I do. I know it probably sounds messed up, but it's just the way it is. I'm not like that. So I took the route of working for another company and doing art and design, and it was pretty lucrative, decently lucrative anyways. But then also what I found happen, at first I told myself, well, I'll just do this long enough to get into comics. I'll use this as my side hustle, and I'll eventually get into comics, and then I won't need to do this anymore. But what happened, I started acquiring more debt, more bills, more work hours. I started to make steps where I was like, I ran the art department where I was at. I had employees, and I started to like move up a little bit, and then I had started my own business, and I just kind of slowly fell away from doing art. It was parts where I looked at it, or comic art, I should say. And it was parts where I looked at it and I went, man, I don't think I've created an art piece in about a few months. And then it started to really sink in like, well, I'm just changing. I'm not doing what I set out to do. I'm compromising is what I'm saying. So it wasn't that I ever lost motivation. It was that my thought process changed on what I thought I could accomplish. And I made some choices that I wish I wouldn't have made. Now, you can never regret your past. It's just silly. Everything you do makes you into who you are. But at the same time, looking back, I'm like, oh, I wish I would have really just stuck it out with comics. But then what ended up happening is with the big, what I consider a movement really, a big change in the way that we were able to share work and make a name for ourselves. Before you had to really get in front of these big audiences. You had to at least do comic conventions, which are still very important. But really your golden meal ticket, I think, was getting in with these big names, these big name companies, and working on the big titles. That was your way. And a lot of people would get in and draw for very low amounts just so that they could, get in and make a living, make a name for themselves so that they could ultimately make more later. And now I don't think you really have to do that. I mean, you can do that, and by all means, if you can get in there and do it, but there's lots of ways to share your work and build a following and do your own thing as well now. So that's kind of what ultimately led me back, because I started to share on YouTube, and then I started to realize, I think I can make a go of this. And I ultimately shut down my business of 15 years to pursue what I'm doing now. What, you guys have given me the support and helped me to do. And it was a scary, scary thing. But I was like, I got to get back to what I wanted to do, and that was draw comics. So if I can impart anything on a younger person these days trying to get into it, stick with it, work hard, be diligent, and don't give up. I had a lot of people in my ear growing up that were saying, artists just don't make a good living. They struggling artists. We've all heard that. These days, there's lots of exceptions to that rule. It's not even a rule anymore. So just realize that you have a lot of means in front of you, more means as an artist than probably ever. And I really think that artists in these next few generations are going to be highly empowered. They're going to be like more on the level of singer-songwriters, not quite that big maybe, but they're going to have that same potential to make things, share it with the world. And, you got to figure if everybody supported you just a little bit, you can do pretty darn well, right? So you just got to find your niche and be passionate about what you do, and people follow. So, by sharing content like this, you're basically getting free advertising. I mean, before you had to pay people to even put your name out there, so it's really amazing. I'm kind of just hoping that they don't shut down that ability for people, because artists have a unique ability to get their message out there and connect with other people via their art and their passion, what they love to do. So it's pretty cool. I probably should just be copying, keep in mind, every time you draw like a little window section here, you can just draw this on a layer, copy it over, save a lot of time. And then save these, and when you go to do another city, just use this. Or create a custom brush. I think I'm going to do that. I've been trying to figure out a way to do that, where I create custom brushes for like just this window, and then you would like draw across and give you all those windows. Or even if it just gave you the one window, you'd distort the rest into place. But I might do a brush pack where I do windows and building trim or something and help everybody cheat, basically. Do you feel much difference in drawing on a tablet and a Cintiq? Both tablets. What do you mean? Oh, like a lap tablet or an Intuos series, something like that. And yeah, somebody's saying, speaking of buying stuff, what's your input device for digital art? I'm using a Cintiq 22, thinking about upping up to 27, or they got some new ones out now. I don't know, but basically I use the 22 HD, love it. It's been rock solid for 5 years now, and I love the iPad Pro. That's what this was drawn in. Now I'm inking it on a Cintiq. And then the difference from a Cintiq to I call them lap tablets because I always sit mine on my lap, but a lot of people will use them a little bit differently than that. I have a hard time getting the lines I like for inking. I can draw pretty decent or effectively on those, but for the control I like for inking, I like my Cintiq. I do find that actually my inking is best on this device compared to even the iPad Pro. That being said, I've seen some pretty amazing inks on the Intuos series. So it just depends on how long you work at it. Like, I'm pretty sure that Patrick Brown guy I mentioned uses the Intuos tablets, or something like that. So there's a lot of great artists that manage to still get the job done with whatever device they're using. You just really have to keep at it. Clayton Barton, how to draw comics.net. I'm pretty sure he uses an Intuos tablet. You can check out his work. He's on my featured channels list. And also my buddy Chris Scalf that does digital paintings uses an Intuos tablet. Now, digital painting is a lot of bit different of approach, but what I'm getting at, he still does some amazing dynamic art. So you can do it with whatever. You just have to put in the time. I got frustrated and started to just, want a Cintiq, and I went ahead and got it. But in some ways, I wonder if I should have just held out. But I'm a bit impatient. Why does that window look funny? Darn windows. Doesn't even look right. What did I do there? Strange. I'll have to draw that in. All right, what else we got? I'm missing. Forgive me. I'm missing some comments here, and we're coming up over the hour mark, so I'm probably going to close this off in a bit. I'll just answer a few quick questions. Well, they're never quick, are they? Yeah. So somebody says yes, brush pack. All right, sounds good. I know I got to get back on the brushes. I'm slacking bad. When it comes to the new Wacoms, do you even think 4K comes in handy? Yeah, I think 4K is a bit of overkill, and what ends up happening a lot of times is it comes out, and then you got to wait for everything else to catch up, right? So for me, like recording the screen, I don't even know if that's effective. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. I don't know. But like I said, you do have to like take into account that if everything's not really ready for that, then it may not work anyways. So like for instance, if you're streaming or you don't really need 4K images for whatever reason, then maybe not. But I mean, visually, it's going to be great. The screen's going to look so crystal clear. You're going to love looking at it. I've already heard people talk about it. It sounds amazing. But I don't think that it's a necessity by any means. I never look at my screen here and go, oh, I got to zoom in way further. Like I'm zoomed in too far right there. I would think that with more resolution, you're just going to feel like it's more comfortable to zoom in. And then you're going to probably up your document size to make it look as beautiful as it can in front of you. So yeah, it's like, I don't know where that would really be a necessity. Maybe for photo retouching, and high-end photography, that would be more of a necessity. I don't know, because I don't do that, so I wouldn't know. But for this, I don't think so. I think it's always just a matter of doing workarounds too. If you don't, think about when Manga Studio 4 was out and everybody was doing it on the tablets previous to this. I think this tablet was actually out, but there's been some revisions, even revisions in the drivers and the apps. The softwares have gotten a lot better. So it's kind of all of them trying to catch up to whatever new thing they put out. Any good ways for practicing drawing as a beginner? Yeah, draw everything you can get your eyes on and draw basic shapes first and work your way up to complex and more organic stuff like anatomy and figure drawing, but get the basics down first, primitive shapes. Hi Robert, did you try inking in the new version of Photoshop using new brush stabilization feature? How does it feel compared to Manga Studio? I have the new version of Photoshop, but I haven't tried. I didn't realize there was a new brush stabilization feature. I haven't really delved into it as much as I should have, so I haven't tried that. I usually turn stabilization off anyways because I like my lines to look a bit organic, so I like to get what I'm trying to get, and I find that if I turn it on, I start going back and turn it off for other areas. So for me, I don't use it as much, but I'm sure there's definitely applications where it's very helpful. I know for guys that do lettering, it can be really nice. If I'm thinking of the right thing, like for on the iPad Pro and Procreate, it's called Streamline, and it does this little bit of delay behind the brush stroke and makes it nice and fluid. But yeah, I haven't tried it on Photoshop. I'll have to get back with you on that one. Oh, thanks Unknown for commenting back. I appreciate that. It's really nice when you guys take the time to comment back. You're using Continue, right? Cintiq. Oh yeah, Cintiq. Yeah. Yeah. So it might be the size thing. So if you're using the iPad Pro and you're not quite feeling it, then it might be that. I feel like the iPad Pro has a more natural feeling to the drawing process. Now, as it pertains to inking, probably a little bit less. I can still get it to work, but I do feel I feel more control with the inking on the Cintiq. I really do. It's very accurate. Like I feel like everywhere I put the lines down, that's exactly where I meant to put them down. Maybe it was some small amount of inconsistencies or whatever, but not enough to feel bad about it and go, this isn't doable. So you just have to make that judgment call for yourself. I do think that the iPad is a great device. I think that what's going to happen, this is just me spitballing and thinking what might occur. I think that within the next few revisits to the iPad, I think it's going to take over. I really do, because it's Apple. They're very good at taking over the market with most of the things they do, and I'd be highly surprised if they don't just take over tablets, art tablets in the next few generations. Maybe not, but I just could really see it happening. But the Cintiqs are awesome. But the only thing that bothers me about the Cintiqs is people constantly complain about their lack of support. They're kind of rude with people. They're kind of like, just deal with it. Or Wacom. I don't like that. I don't like the, that upper class kind of thing they try to portray. And then they release their technology early, it seems like, almost every time. I love them, don't get me wrong. I love using a Cintiq, but I'm so apprehensive to buy the new stuff because if you read the reviews, almost every time they're riddled with driver issues and problems. And it's like, wait to release it, test longer, then release it. Give your consumers less to have to do the work for you, basically. Because what happens is we become the guinea pigs, and then we do the testing, and then they run it off our feedback. And I get that there's so many different combinations of devices out there. I understand that. But at the same time, that's why you test in your own bubble, or, whatever they do. Test in your environment, figure that stuff out, then release it. But I don't know. Maybe I don't know enough about it to have an opinion, but that's one thing that I always see. And then when I go to buy this new device, it's like $3,000 or whatever it is. If it's got like 3.5-star reviews, and a lot of these reviews are people like just complaining about the overall quality of it, or the drivers, they couldn't get them to work right for the first few months. They had to return one because the screen was messed up. I just get really apprehensive about dropping that kind of money. But that's just me, and I feel bad saying that because I'm using a Cintiq 22 that's been bulletproof for the past 5 years. But I also didn't buy it brand new right out the gate either. That's kind of how technology works. Yeah, I'm waiting to see what Apple does with the 2018 version. Blind Weeble says, yeah, good point, Blind Weeble. Like, it's going to be probably a massive update. And then what I would like to see with Apple's newer iPads is, like, if they would just come out with a bigger iPad. I think it would be amazing. I think that it's pretty good size. You can zoom in and compensate for sure. But if that thing was just a little bit bigger and it had a little bit more options for it's got some split screen functions, which is nice. The main thing's holding it back is the ability to multitask, and the keyboard kind of thing is awkward. But other than that, I mean, and the app's got to come a little bit further. With a little bit more powerful update, the apps are going to get better. People are fighting tooth and nail to come out with the next best app. I think you're going to see a lot of these big companies jump on the bandwagon. Clip Studio Paint obviously came out with their app. It's awesome. It runs really well. I'm highly impressed with it. I could easily take this right over to my iPad and start inking away. So it's going to come a long ways in the next few revisions, and I think people are going to be really looking at that a lot more effectively as a viable source to do their art on the go. And I'm a big advocate of that because, you got to get out and do things. You can't be stuck in your studio all the time. It kills creativity, in my opinion. So being able to just grab your files and run out the door and go, say you meet with clients. I used to have to do that back in the day. I'd be able to meet with a client, no big deal. Not say, hey, can you come to my studio so that we can get this art approved or whatever. You just jump over there, you take it over there. Not only can you take it with you, you can make edits on the fly. So yeah, that becomes very important for a freelance art person. Yeah, it doesn't matter, Apple or Wacom, both are so expensive. Yeah, I agree. If you're not poised to make that purchase, it's it can seem just ridiculous. What I will say about that though is think about the fact that if you really do create a lot of art, you can justify it pretty easily by your savings. I've been meaning to do a video on this, and I really think I should, but I want to total up the amount of Bristol board and traditional art supplies that I've saved by switching over. Now, I don't know if it would pay for my Cintiq. I know it would definitely pay for my iPad. I draw on my iPad like crazy amounts, and I'm pretty sure for the 2 years I've had my iPad Pro that the savings in traditional art supplies would have already been covered. Maybe not. Maybe it's just close. I don't know. But that's something you do have to think about. You don't have to buy those anymore or as much. I still buy art supplies. I just love art supplies. I go to Michael's and just drop cash. Just I don't even know if I'm going to use them later. I just buy stuff. But it's just the way it is. So you are saving some money, and you got to think about the speed. If you're faster because of it, then faster is better. Your time is the most valuable asset you got. If it makes you faster, it's a deal. It's worth spending the money. You just might have to save up, or you might have to draw a bunch of traditional art that you can sell. Do some commissions for people or whatever, and save up and get it. And if it's something that makes you faster anyways, once you got it, you're going to end up saving a bunch of time. Yeah, I don't know. I like it. I think that I was pleasantly surprised with when I jumped into it, because my inking process, mainly what I'm doing here, I just couldn't seem to ink as clean traditionally, and it just helped me in that department. So, and I liked having the ability to be able to ink something and not clean my brushes and stuff like that. I'm a bit lazy. I can't even get this line to look right, as I'm trying to say I enjoy inking in this. Let's just keep making bad lines here. Oh, it's horrible. What the? Alright, apparently I've had too many beers. Just kidding, I'm not drinking. Maybe I should be. Maybe that would correct my lines. If I wanted to be a commercial storyboard artist, would I have to move to a city where they have, or can you work from home? I don't do it anymore, but yes, you can work from home. Man, I missed a bunch of those comments. I'm sorry, everybody. If you need to, comment again. But yeah, you can definitely work from anywhere you want. I worked from a home studio when I did it. The hard part, like anything else, is getting in with the right people and the agents, getting them to like your work. So you either have to make your portfolio extremely dynamic, and or know the right people, basically. So you gotta get noticed, like other art industries, right? And so you have to emulate what you see out there, and it's a speed-based biz. Like you got to be really fast at knocking out these different scenes. So you got to be ready to draw people and lots of different actions. Everything from sipping coffee to reading the newspaper to playing sports. I did a lot of those. Driving cars. I had to draw a lot of cars, which for me was actually kind of easy because I would trace them. I would cheat on the cars. But then I started to feel bad because I was cheating and tracing stuff, and they're like, no, it's okay, do that. That's what a lot of storyboard artists do. And I'm like, no, I think of myself as a real artist, and I like to just draw stuff, which is really kind of silly. That's your pride getting in the way. But anyways, yes, you can work from home, but you want to get on sites like Storyboards Inc., Famous Frames, look at their stuff and emulate it, and create a really powerful portfolio that has all the main components of what they're pitching. So that's how it is. And but like I said, be ready to be fast. If you can't remember what it was, 10 to 12 black and whites in a day, scenes, or 6 to 8 color, then you're kind of not fast enough for them yet. And remember, they can throw anything at you, and they do. They throw. I had some weird jobs. I'm like, really? This is going to be a commercial? Yep, this is it. Draw this guy that's sitting in a blender, banging on the glass, screaming and saying, "Get me out of here!" And you're like, all right, I got to draw that, So it's really weird. You get all the strange ideas, and some of them never make it to commercials. It's hilarious. Like they do all this stuff, and just for people to look at in a boardroom and go, we don't like it, veto it, or we like it, let's make it. And they spend millions of dollars, and it still ends up as a crappy commercial. I don't know. Some of them are cool. Some of them I was really, really happy with by the end result. And I'm like, I did this once for Hunt's tomato sauce, and it came out, and I was watching the commercial. I'm like, I did that, or I helped do that, So it was pretty exciting. But yes, you can work from home and do that. But also remember, you might want to have the coffee on ready to go, because you can work some late nights in that job. Just saying. I pulled all-nighters quite a bit because I'm not that fast. Let's see. It's not just a tablet. You're eventually going to need a powerful PC too. Yep. Yeah, you got to have something tough pushing it, unless you're doing like their mobile pro, whatever it is, which I've heard mixed reviews on that one as well. I run a MacBook Pro, and I love it. This is like a 4-year-old MacBook Pro, and it's still been awesome. Let's see. Oh, Sam says I have poor vision, so digital is perfect for me. Yeah, I didn't think about that. Yeah, zooming in is a big saver for the eyes. You know, you just got to get the lighting. I've noticed right. You got to have ample lighting in the room based to the screen. If you don't, it's got to be even too. If one's significantly brighter, you can actually damage your eyes, and you got to wear them glasses, or you can get those glasses that protect you from blue light emission, all this stuff. But yeah, it's getting that light balance in the room just right. I've noticed. Oh, you're welcome, Kevin. Happy to answer the question. I left a question previously. Sad face. Sorry, Vortex Legacy. It's hard for me to keep up with these. I can't read and draw. I need like a little sidekick over here. It's like reads this stuff for me. Anybody want to come be my sidekick? I don't even see the question. Where'd it go? Vortex Legacy. Wow, that's a lot of questions. Can you just retype it real quick there? Sorry. It's okay. Oh, smiley face. All right, well, at least you're in a better mood. That sad face really had me worried. Okay, back to the illustration. But you can retype it, and if I can answer it this time, I'll do my best. Watch me miss it again and just come back, get you back to this sad face. Hold on. Oh, Jada wants to be the sidekick. Nice. Dun dun dun. Sidekick. All right, well, how far do you live? Because I need you here in about 5 minutes. Get on a plane. Do it. Do it now. All right, I'm going to use a little cheat here with the shift. One thing I will say, though, notice how I put those 3 lines together and they're all the same weight? Not cool. Can't do that. Doesn't look right. You have to make sure they're all weighted a little bit differently. And it looks better, see? A little pro tip there for you. Even though I'm not a pro. I'm kind of pro. But I don't get paid to draw Venom here. Just so you guys know, I'm in no way licensed or legally able to draw Venom. Well, I can draw them. I just don't get to get paid to draw Venom. How can I make steam or smoke effects in hand drawn in digital? For example, a person taking a shower. Yeah, so I mean, I guess it's a custom brush. Is what a custom brush? Sorry, what I'm using to ink right now? No, this is the basic brush. So yeah, so I think I did the steam effect earlier with little sketches over here to the side. This thing's getting messy. Holy moly! All right, so I'll do like the steam off this character's hand. Like you just basically do like a flow, like a. You know, it's almost like the ribbon thing I was talking about with hair. But then usually with steam, you know, you kind of like have it start larger at the base. And then it flows and, you know, look at like smoke for, it comes off, rolls off a cigarette. Hopefully you don't smoke. I'm not trying to tell you to smoke a cigarette. But it does something like this. And this is poorly drawn, but I would soft erase it. And I kind of draw it faster. Like usually the faster you do it, the more you can get a kind of fluid line. And then you just kind of keep hitting Command Z until you get the right look that you want. But I've noticed that if it starts off thicker and then you get these tiny little wisps that wisp off the main portion. Is that what you mean? Or no? It's probably like, that's not even what I meant. You told me how to draw the wrong thing. By the way, I've been binging on your Skillshare classes. I'm learning tons, and thank you so much for introducing me to Manga Studio. It's amazing. Yeah, thanks, Sam. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I love creating those classes. It's helped out immensely. Between Skillshare and Udemy, I'm actually able to just do this stuff and not worry. You know, not be like, oh, I got to get back on a job. I got to take all this work that I don't want to do. It's been awesome. So thank you so much for that support because I couldn't do it without you. And likewise, you know, if you got any questions on those classes, just let me know if there's anything I can help with. And keep in mind, I just want to make sure that people know that if you do comment on one of those and I don't get right back with you, make sure to, you know, comment again or comment through another channel. I've got my website, I've got my Instagram, whatever you can do to get through, because I get a lot of comments now. I'm not trying to pat myself on the back or not, but but it does get tough to respond back to all of them, and I feel bad sometimes because I'm like, well, I hope it's nobody that's supported me by getting a class or a course. If you find that you haven't gotten through yet, try again. I'll do my best to respond back because yeah, it's been utterly amazing for me to be able to, when I teach this stuff, I'm learning with you guys. Just so you know, it's a very great relationship. Like, I'm getting to learn. I'm sharing the process with you. It's awesome, because I got a long ways to go. I still got to get better, but as I learn, I share that with you guys. And so it's good to get that feedback, that people are learning and enjoying the process, the art journey, as I like to call it. It's pretty awesome. So thank you for that. And I think I'm going to fill all this in. Yeah, I try to be. Thanks. Josh Seam said you're so humble. Yeah, I don't like boasters and braggers. I never have. If you're good, just be as good as you can and try to help others along the way. Because I can't remember who said it. I want to say it was Zig Ziglar, but it said, help enough people get what they want, and inadvertently or through that, you'll get what you want. And it's just a simple thing. Like, you just got to help others. You can't just do it. If you're in it just for you, you're probably going to meet some kind of failure or disappointment. But if you help a bunch of people, it just inspires you to keep going. I think it's like, just feels right. So yeah, I'm always trying to help a little bit. I don't want to be. It's real easy to get overly selfish in this pursuit. Like one of the things that happens is you draw so much, you like become a little more introverted and you don't go out and do as much as you should. And you got to remember to take time and go help out family, help out friends, or you just it consumes part of you. You know what I mean? So it's like you have to make sure that you're helping other people so that you don't just get consumed with doing it for you. Because like I said, it ends up being a very shallow experience when it could be a very enlightening experience. You guys are probably realizing how slow I am at inking now. This is why it takes so long to get this crazy piece done. Holy moly. All right, we just hit the 1.5 hour mark. I better close this one down. Oh my God, I can't believe I just live streamed for an hour and a half. And some people just go for hours, don't they? I've heard people saying like there's streams that last 2-3 hours. I can't believe that. But, oh yeah, thanks Sam. I see that comment as well. Appreciate that. Yeah, comics are awesome, man. I'm just so glad that like we're all so fortunate because these amazing movies. Like for instance, what inspired me to do this one and try to put so much into it was that new Venom movie coming out, and it's like the new Avengers movie. I mean, it's just nuts, man. That we got all this great, high budget, well played, fantastic actors, big budgets, the biggest of the biggest, and there's like they're just coming out left and right. It's just amazing, and I think it's so neat to have all that inspiration going on. You can like take a break and go watch one of these amazing movies and be like, come back totally inspired. And it's all from comics. And I grew up in a time when, people were like saying, "Oh, comics aren't, comics aren't cool, or comics aren't going to do anything." No one's really going to come of that. A lot of people would down comics, and it's like, man, I can only imagine what those people are thinking right now, because it's like comics have become the precipice for all, that's where all these movies came from. If you didn't have comics, you wouldn't have all these great ideas. And directors really started paying attention in the past, however many years, but they really looked and said, man, we've got all these people pouring their hearts and souls into these books, and they're making these epic, iconic characters. And all this, what's funny is, what a comic book is? It's a storyboard for the director. It's all there. The director can take that and just grab bits and pieces and recollage it together and make it into an amazing movie with the right team. And yeah, so they finally saw the true value of it. And it's so funny because I just remember looking back, and the old comic book movies were just horrible. They were just horrible. Didn't have any budgets, and the effects were just, I don't think there was effects, But yeah, now the new movies are looking sweet. Yeah, and Josh Seam says Tom Hardy is awesome. Yeah, I'm glad they got that dude. He's a fantastic actor, and you know, I kind of look at these actors and I look at the movies they're in, and he hasn't been in any bad movies. So it's making me feel really good about Venom, because what happens usually, not always, but a lot of actors will get to a certain point where they get good at putting themselves in the right movie, or maybe their agents or whoever it is. But you can almost rely on the fact that since he's in there, it's probably a pretty darn good representation of that movie. Where, you know, you've seen it, they failed in the past in some instances of different characters like that. So there's a good, you know, pretty good chance that that's going to be a pretty awesome movie. And based on the trailer, I would say it's if it lives up to that trailer, we're in for a ride. Yeah, it's forgive me, I can't say that name. Lukas Malendi. In Poland, that opinion is still very strong. Comics are for kids. It's changing, but slowly. Exactly, and that's what it was growing up. It was like comics are childish. They're for young adults that don't want to fully grow up, and all those depictions of it were just totally inaccurate. You know, and I always like to tell people is like, I think I learned more from comics growing up. This is gonna sound bad, than school, and the reason being is because the comics I was reading had some really in-depth writing and some very you know, big words. You know, I mean, you had to figure out those words, right? So it was like you're reading and understanding these graphical depictions with these intense stories. You were learning a ton. You know, the comics were a great way to learn. So much so that I went to Italy to visit family when I was younger. What do? I pick up a comic of Dylan Dog, I think it was, and I start trying to translate it because I saw this dynamic art and I didn't realize they had really cool comics over there. And it was more of a detective kind of book, if anybody's familiar with that. But the art was just amazing, and I'm over there trying to, you know, translate it as I was over there. I learned a ton from that experience. You know what I mean? So, yeah, there's just they're great. They're great resources of information. They're not just, you know, flighty bits of imagination. There's great inspiration and ability to learn there as well. But yeah, so great talking with everybody. I really appreciate everybody's support of the channel, of the live stream. If you want to learn more, I do have courses and things like that you can check out. I'm always happy if you can participate in things like my Udemy Skillshare. But, you know, if nothing else, I'm always going to be bringing more content to YouTube. So if you don't have the means, don't worry about it. Don't ever feel compelled. You know, it's just there for you if you need the added, you know, information. And then keep in mind, I do have the book on Amazon, Learn to Draw Action Heroes, and if you do get a copy, make sure to leave an honest review on there as well, so that others know what you think of it, and I know what you think of it, so I can improve my, you know, who knows, maybe I'll do another book, I don't know, but we'll see. But thanks very much for tuning in and watching. You guys are great. Keep drawing, keep having fun, and I will talk to you soon.